I meant to.
My schedule's free.
So
don't want to publicly say that.
Yafe Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Ma Yafe Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom.
We're on page 28. Before we continue with more songs of Shabbat welcome, first, a chance to welcome each other. For all of our visitors from the community, thank you for being here with us tonight on this wonderful night. You received a Shabbat sheet worship pamphlet as you came in that includes upcoming events. On the back, a little bit of information not only about our speaker tonight, but also about a wonderful exhibit we are kicking off tonight. Our art committee has put up the work of Ezekiel Golden, a member of our congregation whose work reflects his embrace of freedom. Since he left the Soviet Union several decades ago, he and his wife are cherished members of our congregation, and I, for one, am so honored to have their work gracing our boardroom the next few months. It just brings it to life. So after services, do take a look, and although he's here quite frequently on the Sabbath, this is a unique opportunity to look at his work and ask him about it during our Oneg Shabbat. In addition, while we have many guests, we have Father Brandon Murphy here, although he said, don't call me Father and don't call me Murphy. But I wanted to begin with formality. So Brandon, Father, we are honored to have you with us in this place on this Shabbat. As we continue, first, we wish each other Shabbat Shalom. We welcome all of each other so none are strangers.
Shabbat Shalom.
There we go.
On the edge.
Oh, yeah, we usually scoot down, we'll be nervous. We're knocking.
As we are all wishing each other Shabbat Shalom to our choir who is a cappella tonight, and we are glad to have so many of you all together on the same evening with your beautiful voices. Also want to wish Shabbat Shalom to our president, who has been here like rain and shine, like the creed of the postal worker, only even more loyally. This is his last Shabbat. He promises he'll visit, but he will not be required. He said, well, I didn't require him to sit on the bima, and you could see a little spry in his step tonight. So do make sure to wish him Shabbat Shalom and to thank him for his 2 years of service. I know I do, as well as sitting next to Ruth Roper, a member of our board. As we continue, a word or two. I am not the speaker tonight, but I want to frame our Kabbalat Shabbat. I want to frame this time of year. Passover just ended. Hard to believe it's only been a little over a week since we could eat bread. How quickly we forget that bread of slavery, that bread of haste. We've crossed through the sea, we are redeemed, and we are in a 50-day period of counting known as the Omer. The Omer being a measure of wheat, of offering that was brought to the temple as a prayer of thanksgiving. The Omer is also the 50-day period in which we move from salvation at the sea to redemption at Mount Sinai. We're not simply free, where are we going? And on Shavuot, at the beginning of June, we embrace the Torah, we embrace it here, we think about where we're headed. In between, there are all kinds of interesting things going on. This past week, we had Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. Next week, we have Yom HaZikaron, the day when many remember. There'll be a community observance just across the street at 6:30 at Shabbat Shalom for all of us, where we're with many of our Israeli brothers and sisters, and we think of those soldiers who fought for the state of Israel. And then we come to Israel Independence Day. So each of those asks the same question. We're free, but for what? And what are the sacrifices along the way that bring us to the next thing? And in the midst of it, we are reminded of the brokenness. Judaism is very clear. We're freed, we cross through the sea, but we're not there yet. We live in a very fragile, very real, very far from complete world. It's up to us to do the work. We were reminded of that in the last week. We were reminded of that in San Diego, personally as Jews. We were reminded in North Carolina. And there are probably a lot of other places that we could have been reminded, but we've become numb to the acts of violence. And so our deeds and our study and our commitment determine the value of our redemption. If there's a theme of these 50 days, it's God has freed us, but for what? And so a number of things coalesce. Tomorrow night is confirmation, when our 10th graders celebrate their continued Jewish study and share their stories along the way. The Torah portion for the next week is Kedoshim. You will be holy, just as I, the Lord your God, am holy. Our confirmation students will read from that tomorrow night. Next week, our women of Reformed Judaism will rejoice in their joy and their stories. And then we get to Shavuot. So lest we get caught up in the craziness of the time, our crossing through the sea asks us a question, and it asks a question for 50 days. In the brilliance of Judaism, we don't just run and embrace the Torah. We say, Torah's coming. Our mission is yet to be defined. And amidst the violence, and amidst the incompleteness, and amidst the personal losses of our own lives, what will we do to figure out what our task is? How will we repair the world? How will we repair ourselves? What does God command us to do to make this world a better place? Which, appropriately enough, connects to the theme of tonight, and connects to the theme not only of our artists after services, but it connects even more profoundly to the words of our guest speaker later tonight. Where we come from, where are we going, what does God command us to do to make the world holy in the midst of personal, communal, national, religious brokenness and pain? And so on page 128, even as we reflect on that, we rejoice in the opportunity to do it together. How good it is when all of us join together as one, join together as brothers and sisters, join together in sacred tasks of repair, of peace, of wholeness.
שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לי 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 לי. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לי 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 לי. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, לי 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 לי. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
We turn to page 120 for the lighting of Shabbat candles. It's a great honor to call up a bright student, not just bright GHT, but ITE, and my wife, who just finished her first semester back in school, and arranged tonight's speaker to lead us in the lighting of Shabbat candles.
some help.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Bottom of page 124, Kabbalat Shabbat is the short service in which we invite Shabbat to meet us where we are at, to bring us to this place, this day of rest, responsively. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for fellowship. May it will. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out petty and pride, envy and enmity. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. Page 138, we will be chanting the first, second, I think fifth and ninth verses of Lecha Dodi to one of my favorite tunes that we've introduced you to in the last year.
Shamor utzakor baribor echad hishmeanu elam yuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shem u'tiferet l'tila Shabbat lekavela Likrat Shabbat lechu b'necha ki mekor haracha merosh mikem nesucha sof b'machshavat tila olecha dori likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela olecha dori likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela
שלום, עטרת מעלה, גם בשמחה ובשורה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, הולך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, הולך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
Remain standing. Enter in peace, O crown of Shabbat. Enter in joy. Bring Shabbat in joy to your people, O Sabbath Queen. Page 144, the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, יאמר תברח חירותי ממליך מלכותי, בחיי כל וביומכם ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי המאיה. יתברך יתברך וישתבח, יתפאר יתרומם יתנשא, יתהדר יתעלה יתעלה, שמי קדושה בריחו, להאמין כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירה מעמה, ויאמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
We remain standing as we move from the call to worship toward the Shema, the watchword of our faith. We read together at the bottom of page 149. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quiet on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravi.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשכבנו ותקומנו נשיח בתוכך, במזמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגי יומם ולילה, נגי יומם ולילה.
join together.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Yevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated as on 155 we join together with these words from the Torah. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you this day. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work. Whether you are tired or you are rested, let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. Page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot together, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better way, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, norat milot osef elei, norat milot osef elei, malchutecha ra'u בוקי הים, לפני משה ומרים, זה לי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, לעולם ועד.
V'ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov. Then it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Page 161, at the bottom together. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For in you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, Haporei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Amo Yisrael V'al Yerushalayim. Page 162, a prayer of Shabbat.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש.
thought has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat arrives in the world, scattering a song in the silence of the night. Eternity utters a day. Page 164, we begin the first 3 pages together through 168, 170, and then we continue on our own through page 180, standing, seated, English, Hebrew, however you wish to use that time. But first, we join together. Oh God, open our lips that our mouths may declare your praise. Please rise.
Adonai sefetai titach uvia gita hilatecha. Eternal God, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor HaNorah Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Koneh HaKol V'Sofer Chasdei Avot V'Imahot U'Mevi K'Lalim Lehem L'man Shemo V'Ahava Melech Ozer Mashiach U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ezrat Sarah Atah Kadosh V'Shem Mechayeh HaKol Tara L'Mashiach Mechayeh Chanim B'Chesed Mechayeh HaKol B'Ragamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Rofei Holim U'Matir Asurim U'Mechayeh Emunato L'Kshenei Afar Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot U'Mido Melach Melech Merid U'Mchayeh U'Matzmiach Yeshua B'Marachot HaKol Baruch atah Adonai Melech HaKol
HaKadosh, Shemcha Kadosh, Kodesh Selah.
Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
Take some time for yourself.
If your prayers are my prayers, and our prayers are everything, won't we all be part of one prayer? Let your prayer be my prayer, and our prayer be everything. Oh, we all know we're all part of one prayer. So open up your heart to all the lost and lonely. Let no one be
often we have a number of visitors here tonight, and often this is, I explain parts of the service, and the regulars hear it over and over. They could say it. So it occurred to me I should at least point that out tonight. The Jewish prayer service is a series of sub-services connected, if you will, a series of ascending steps that begin with welcoming Shabbat, continue with the call to prayer and the Shema, and then the central prayer section that we just completed. And if you're not sure what I mean, you see in the prayer book on the right and left sides little listings in light blue, and those listings change, and they point out to you that we are in prayer sections. This is the part of the service as we look closer and closer to the sort of messianic reaching Aleinu near the end, as we move and move and move. This is the part of the service known as where the speaker goes. So I use that opportunity to show you what was going on in the service, that it is more than just a collection of prayers. In fact, there is a very set, fixed order from welcoming the Sabbath bride to affirming the call to prayer and the Shema, Hear, O Israel, Lord our God is one, to that middle section you saw that people join in, and then continue silently, that speaks about the joy of Shabbat and our connection to our ancestors. So all that's going on. If this were a Saturday morning or certain Friday nights, we would arrive at Torah. And that would be our sort of pinnacle, if you will, up the steps of the service. But tonight, we have a different type of teaching in Torah. We have a guest speaker, and introduce our guest speaker called Mimi Zimmerman.
Shabbat Shalom. I want to thank those of you who are here tonight because I asked you to come. I also want to acknowledge my professor from Bright, Dr. Francisco Lazada, who is here with his wife Wendy, who came in from Dallas. So thank you for being here. Some of you know that I recently made a pilgrimage to El Paso, Juarez, to witness firsthand, up close and personal, what is going on in the city that makes the news daily now for its unprecedented numbers of migrants making the trek to our country to find a safe place to raise their families. These folks are coming here on a forced migration to escape some of the most violent and terror-filled circumstances one could imagine. And they come here with hopes and dreams of rebuilding their lives. This should sound familiar to all of us. This is our story. Someone in all of our families escaped violence and oppression to assure that we would have a safe and secure life in this country. Unfortunately, that is not the picture that is being painted publicly of these migrants, nor are immigrants being treated with the respect and dignity and hospitality that our Jewish tradition demands. In the Torah, we are commanded numerous times to befriend the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. We also learn in Torah that each human being is created B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. When I returned from my Borderlands trip, I wanted to get involved with immigration reform and make a small difference in my community. It was through advocacy work that I met Juana Guzman. Juana has a story to tell about her own experience with immigration to this country and about what is going on locally in regards to immigration. I think you will be surprised to learn about some of the unwelcoming things happening in Fort Worth, and I hope you will feel compelled to help make a change. Juana is a graduate of Paschal High School and holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from the University of Texas at Austin, where she participated in several leadership organizations. She is a community organizer, activist, and artist, and serves as the community outreach coordinator for Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services, otherwise known as RAICES, Fort Worth. RAICES is a nonprofit organization that offers legal services to the immigrant community. I admire Juana for her bravery in speaking out about immigration issues in a variety of contexts, and am proud to call her my friend.
I'm a little short for this. Good evening, everyone. My name is Juana Guzman, as Mimi mentioned. A little bit about Raíces, because that is where I work at, and I do want y'all to know the kind of work we do and who we're serving. So this nonprofit organization is mostly able to provide legal immigration services to immigrants who are either recently arriving into the United States as refugees or asylum seekers, also as sometimes unaccompanied minors. But we also offer other services like families petitioning for other family members who they may be able to do that for. We also offer services to people who have been victims of either a crime or specifically to domestic violence survivors who are seeking to adjust their immigration status through this benefit that thankfully hasn't been taken away yet, as many other things have. So those are just some of the examples of cases that we take. A lot of it is free or low cost. We're a nonprofit in the sense that we don't charge as much as private attorneys, but that also means that we are very full. There's almost no capacity in a lot of ways because we just see so many cases of people who have this need. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my story because that ended up getting me to Raíces, and I haven't really been able, like this has been my entire life, and I haven't been able to get away from all of this. I really wish I didn't have to share my story. It's not very comfortable, and it's not something that I necessarily enjoy, but I also know that not speaking about this issue has me in a state of anxiety that is so much greater than if I didn't speak out about this. So thank y'all for allowing me to come into this space. Thank you, Mimi, for inviting me to come and share this with y'all. So, like I said, my name is Juana, and I hold several titles or labels. I'm a community organizer, an artist, Mexican, immigrant, daughter, sister, soon to be an aunt, and overall a human being. I mention all of these labels because there is something very often used to describe me, but it is something that I am not, and that is illegal. As a person of faith, I know that my existence and that of every single life is precious. Though I do not speak for all immigrants or even for all undocumented immigrants, I am here to share my story as an undocumented immigrant because I am tired of the story being told by people who do not know immigrants and yet call us murderers, rapists, illegals. I do not hold proper immigration documentation, and that makes me undocumented, but not illegal. No human life is illegal. And that's why I wanted to share that with y'all, because it is something that is commonly used to refer to us. I've been undocumented practically all of my life, and I have always known that because I haven't been able to forget the way we had to risk our lives crossing the river. The last time I came and entered into the United States, I was 9 years old. My family and I came, like many immigrants have done, in search of a better life. In Guanajuato, Mexico, my parents were agricultural workers. They worked in the fields picking strawberries, cucumbers, onions. They earned very little, and because of that, we were forced to migrate in order to survive. We never intended to stay here. We had a whole life in Mexico, a very poor life, but a life we were familiar with. It was not fun to uproot our lives, but it was necessary. Even I, at a young age, knew that. My family was reluctant to make this our home, and therefore, from the time I was born up until I was 9 years old, I crossed the southern border many times. But in August of 2000, we made the last trip from Mexico to the United States. I did not know it then, but that was the last time I would see my paternal grandmother, who I loved and had grown up with, and that was, like I said, the last time I would ever see her again. After years of much traveling, I was dizzy of doing just that, moving all over the place. So I was trying to hold on to anything that would make my life make sense to me. When I found out that my church read the same scriptures every Sunday as my grandmother did in Mexico, I cried, because I realized that no matter where I went, no matter how many times my life changed, God remained the same. He was the one constant in my life that constantly kept changing. And he was the same here and in any side of the world. I grew up knowing our lives were complicated here. My parents would freeze when we saw a police car driving behind us. We went outside very little, only for necessary things like school, work, church, the store. When we did go out elsewhere, it was usually not very far from home, and we preferred walking. I learned that it was best to remain invisible, although I didn't know why. One day when I was 12, my family was watching the nighttime news when I noticed a video of people crossing the river. I was really excited. I did not pay attention to what the news was actually saying. All I knew was that I was watching something I could relate to, an experience I had always wanted to bring up with my parents, but I didn't know how. All these images came up, and my mom immediately got up and left the room, seemingly distressed. I turned around to look at my dad and said, "Whoa, isn't that what we did?" He was silent. I didn't understand why. All I could think about was that what we did was brave, risking our lives like that in search of something better. But for some reason, my parents didn't feel the same way. When I was in middle school, I realized that what was actually being said by people in the news were things like, illegal aliens crossing the border, they're coming to take our jobs, they should get in the back of the line and wait. It was then that I thought to myself, surely they do not know any immigrant. I'm sure if they met us, they'd understand we had no other choice but to come. I grew up in Fort Worth, and like Mimi mentioned, I went to PAS school, and I tried my best to be the perfect student. I figured that by doing this, I could justify that my existence was valid. And in 11th grade, I started my research to try to figure out how to go to college. I went to my college counselor and I asked her how I could go about doing this. But she just said that without a social security number, she really didn't know what I could do, and she just wished me luck. Luckily, my church youth group leader knew some other undocumented kids who had been able to go to college, and because of her, I knew it was possible. It was also junior year that I found out that my immigration status was only going to continue haunting me for the rest of my life, or at least until something got fixed. As I said, I felt pressured to be this perfect student, so I attended as many free PSAT sessions that PASCO offered and was able to receive National Hispanic Scholar on the PSAT. I was overwhelmed with joy until my counselors asked me to go into to their office so that they could explain to me why the district had decided not to recognize me because of my immigration status. I did not understand what it meant, but I knew that I needed to get used to hearing that kind of thing, where I was constantly going to be told that because of your immigration status, you can't do this, you can't do that. And up until then, it had only been things that a kid goes through, but I knew that my parents were going through other things like you can't work, you can't drive, you can't live a normal life. In the same week that I found this out about the PSAT scores, a kid in my physics class thought it would be funny to ask me, "Oh yeah, where's your green card, huh?" To which I replied, I stared right back at him and I said, "I don't have one, okay?" He turned red and something inside of me started to change. I was becoming less and less ashamed to admit my status, and it was at UT Austin when I was admitted and started my freshman year that I found other kids like me who were also undocumented. And because of finding them, I was no longer afraid to admit that I was undocumented. I realized that it wasn't my fault, and it wasn't my parents' fault, and we were stuck in a system that really wasn't helping us make anything better. It was also in 2010 that undocumented youth, or what we call dreamers, a title given to undocumented youth after the 2001 piece of legislation called the DREAM Act, were being deported in outrageous numbers. Though I wasn't ashamed of my status, I was very much afraid to be deported, to be taken from the life my family and I had created, to be separated from my family. If the DREAM Act had passed in 2001, I would probably not be undocumented now. Many kids who are now adults with children of their own would have been able to adjust their status as well. But instead of passing in 2011, I and my friends in the University Leadership Initiative at UT Austin, the organization of immigrant activists that I joined, fought for some sort of relief. If we're not gonna get full status, at least don't deport us. Something that would stop the deportation of undocumented youth. We marched, we protested, we met politicians, and in 2012, Obama listened to our very reasonable ask that we not be deported, and he implemented the program Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, also known as DACA. Under this program, anyone who arrived in the United States before June 15, 2007, and didn't leave the country after that, and who was under 31 years of age at the time of the program, was implemented in June 15, 2012, which means anyone who had been fighting for the DREAM Act and was 32 didn't qualify for that anymore. And anyone who finished high school or completed a GED program and who could prove all of that with unsurmountable amount of evidence could qualify for the DACA program, which gave us a renewable 2-year work permit, which includes the Social Security, a state ID, and in all states, but not most of the time, driver's licenses. This program was supposed to protect us from deportation, but up until now, we have seen that even kids with DACA have been deported. And so I am called a DACA recipient. This doesn't mean that I'm not undocumented anymore. I'm still undocumented. This is just supposed to shield me from deportation in most cases, and give me a work permit, which is a lot more than a lot of people have. I have to send in my renewal application and $495 to immigration every 1.5 years in order to renew my work permit. It's actually coming up this month. I have to send it to renew by September. Because I already had DACA when Trump took it away in September of 2017, I can actually continue sending in my renewal, but a lot of people who didn't have DACA at the time and qualified cannot send in an initial application. So now there are this new wave of young kids who could have qualified for this relief, but are now just graduating high school with nothing again, as many of us have done. My struggle and that of many immigrants is a continuing struggle. Like I said, it's not the same. We don't all face the same struggles. What I shared with you today isn't the same for everyone. I acknowledge that I'm a lot more privileged than a lot of other people are, and that's why I speak out, because I want people to know that I'm not really asking for anything extra or any sort of privilege. I just want people to know that these sort of things are happening, and if I can help towards that, I will. So as an immigrant rights activist, I'm constantly keeping up with different laws and policies. I'm involved in this political world that I didn't really choose to be involved with. So when people tell me, oh, I don't get involved in politics, I think that's a very privileged position, because I don't want to be involved in politics either. I really don't enjoy, this isn't the sort of stuff I would want to be doing. But it's also the sort of thing that is necessary for my family and my friends. So because of that, I'm involved. And so I keep up with laws, things that I've been keeping up with since I was very little. And I find out what's happening at the state, the local, federal level that may threaten my livelihood and that of my friends and family. I have seen too many people deported. I have met too many people whose families have been torn apart to turn my back away from all of this. I have had family members detained, and actually, that's another thing that I wanted to share with y'all. So one of the I could talk about there's so many issues in immigration that we face as immigrants, but there's something happening right now at a very local level that I wanted to share because our lives, like I said, are in constant danger of being uprooted. But something that's happening in Tarrant County today is something called the 287G agreement. This is a formal voluntary agreement signed between the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office and the Tarrant County, and it was signed in June 2017. This program is a formal relationship between Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This is the agency that supports people, and if you mention it to any of my friends and family, you can see the terror in people's eyes. So this is the formal relationship between ICE and the police from the Sheriff's Department. When I first heard about this program, I thought back about how my parents had been so afraid of the police, and I was determined to find out more about it. First of all, it's a voluntary program. We do not have to participate in this. And in fact, we ourselves, as citizens of Tarrant County, as taxpayers, we are funding it. Though the federal government makes a promise to pay back the county on how much it's spending to implement this program, it has not actually reimbursed any other county that has already implemented in its totality. Texas has the most agreements signed in the country, and Tarrant is the largest county with this agreement here. So how does this program work, and what does it actually do that puts our lives in danger? Not only is this program deviating local resources to enforce a federal issue, but it's also weakening our community's willingness to report crimes and things specifically like domestic violence. If people don't feel safe to report a crime because they know that ICE and the police have a relationship, then no one is safe. This program also allows officers to use discretionary power, which has already led to abuse and power in counties such as Maricopa County in Arizona, under Sheriff Arpaio, who is a well-known human rights violator and who justified all of the human rights violations under 287G, this exact program that we have now in Tarrant County. I do not want to wait and see how bad it gets here. I think that any sort of damage done under it is something that my family is constantly being put at risk for, my family and friends. Another huge issue is the obstruction to due process. I'll give you an example. Last October, my cousin was arrested for marijuana possession because he was a passenger in a car that had marijuana. He did not get a chance to defend himself in criminal court, however, because after making him sign bond documents, he was transferred to immigration detention, where he spent 6 months, including his 19th birthday. He was unable to fight his criminal case, and because he failed to appear in criminal court for obvious reasons, such as he was detained in immigration detention, therefore he was given a warrant for his arrest. Because of this, we took a long time going back and forth with a criminal then immigration attorney to try to figure out how to if he could, even stay in the United States, but with a very real possibility that he, at 18, would be sent back to a country that he hadn't seen since he was a baby. His mother was in distress, and we all tried to figure out how to keep our spirits up, but knowing that we had to think of that possibility. These were very long months for his family that we'll never get back. He didn't even get to fight it or prove his innocence, but even if he had, at that point, immigration would have already been aware of his presence in this country because of the 287G agreement, which gives ICE access 24/7 to the database that Tarrant County has. So even though they say that that ICE will only take immigrants who have charges for for misdemeanor B and above, the more serious crimes, what we see is that even if that happens, you don't have to be convicted of that crime for you to be transferred to immigration detention. So you don't get the chance that a lot of other people would to prove your innocence if that's an opportunity, because ICE would have already had you in their radar. So ICE wouldn't, if they know now that you're in the county, they won't just look the other way and say, oh, well, you're innocent, so we'll let you go. Because at this point, to them, being in the country unlawfully is even though it's a civil violation, they would take it in their hands to take you with them. So I'm telling you all this because there is something we can all do right now. The program is coming up for renewal June 30th of this year. It's a 2-year contract and it's coming up for renewal. Under Raices, we created a community campaign that other organizations and community members have joined called Eyes Out of Tarrant. They actually have a few peers here with me that will be handing out information, and also have a petition, if y'all can sign that for us, that we'll be delivering to the Tarrant County Commissioner's Court, so that they know that people oppose a program that is knowingly separating families. And so when this program comes for a vote, we don't know the exact date that it will be voted on, but there are Tarrant County Commissioner Court meetings that happen every Tuesday at 10 in the morning. And so if you're able to make it to any of those, we will also have information for you to get from us, or I think with Mimi, if you can talk to Mimi about signing up to attend a court hearing, to sign, or to either give your testimony or just give a written response of how you oppose the program. So we have this information, and like I said, I share my story because I want you to know of what these programs who put numbers out there look like to a real person who is not just a number and who actually is affected by all of these things. We're not really asking for anything unreasonable. We're asking to continue to have the ability to contribute to this community that we're already a part of. Because even though I felt that pressure to be the perfect student, the perfect this, the perfect that, I know many people who are struggling to survive, and they shouldn't have to then also justify their existence, so they are allowed to stay in a country that they have now made their home. So thank you very much for listening to me today, and like I said, we'll have our cards and information for y'all to sign on to.
Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for sharing your story. Page 645, if you wish to follow along.
Lechi lach to a land that I will show you. Lech lecha to a place you do not know. Lechi lach, on your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi lach. Lechi lach. And I shall make your name great. Lech lecha. And all shall praise your name. Lechi lach. To the place that I will show you. L'simchat chayim. L'simchat chayim. L'simchat chayim. Lechi lach. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi lach.
Thank you for speaking to us tonight. They, meaning Mimi and others, will be also available at the Oneg Shabbat if you'd like more information about how you can speak up. As I said, you'll also have a chance to see this wonderful exhibit, another type of conversation. I have to tell you as an aside that I went to vote a few days ago, and sometimes I can't speak for priests, but we say, oh, not as many people come to worship as they used to. I can tell you, compared to the electoral process, we are a smashing success. I walked into the library and there was not one other person voting. Wow, that's customer service. There were 2 people there to help me. It was like priority. It was just wonderful. I felt like a VIP. I had 2 people doting on me, and I thought, boy, if I had a few thousand friends, I could win any office in this city. So the point is that we have an obligation. There are many ways to speak up. There are many ways to make a difference. We have crossed the sea. The question is still out on how we will use our freedom. It is a question that hangs over us every day. It is a religious imperative. As we've heard, there are many types of brokenness and many types of pain. Some of us whose families fear being divided. Some of us who have experienced illness and sickness and loss. Some of us who have family members currently now recovering from illness. And at this time in the service, we ask God's blessing upon them. Blessings for wholeness, blessings for healing, blessings of shlemut. On this Shabbat, we mention the names of Annette Dover, Charlotte Fiwas, Stacy Lewis, Jeffrey Mark, Pauline Wittenberg, William Westerman, Maria Schoen, Gordon Brody, Graham Baker, Elliot Blumberg, Holly Clegg, Cynthia Labovitz, Katrina Joy Rogers, Joel Green, Corbin Rubinson, Marjorie Deutsch, Roseanne Margolis, Eddie Sankery, Debbie Friedman, Vera Madison, Claire Brunhold, and Buzz Carpe. If you have another name of someone who is ill and in need of healing, you can mention them as I look around the room, starting over here.
Donald Root Pickett and Richard Reynolds.
Jimmy Allen.
Oh, and my nephew Joshua Olin.
Page 371, if you wish to join along, you can, or you can listen. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us to find the courage of healing, the courage to make our lives a blessing.
Source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishenera imotenu mekor. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Turn to page 586. As our president helps us to open the ark and rise before the ark for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוסף ראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא זמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהן, וגור עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו
Please be seated. Before the reading of Kaddish names, a thought from Rabbi Joshua Loth Liebman. He says, "The melody that the loved one played upon the piano of our life will never be played quite that way again. But even amidst our pain, we must not close the keyboard and allow the instrument to gather dust. We must seek out other artists of the Spirit, new friends who gradually will help us to find the road to life again, who will walk on the road with us. The establishment of new patterns of interaction with other people, beginning with the interaction of language and moving on to new avenues of expression, is a law for the conquest of grief, the conquest of death." This time in our service, we reflect on those we have lost. It is our custom to rise when we hear the name of one we are mourning, and then we rise together for all who are in mourning. On this Shabbat, we note Shloshim, the 30-day period of mourning for Alan Lusky, Dorothy Dubrow, Isaac Izzy David Stensler, Lori Kay. And we add the names of the yahrzeits, of the anniversaries of their deaths, of David Bilski, Mina Block, Sandra Tushenblum, Bernard Bodner, Linda Ray Bomash, Shelley Bovin, Sidney Bushner, Francis Carlisle, Adolph Cohen, Nathan Frankel, Morris B. Freed, Sidney Freed, Charlotte Goldman, Dina Gressman, John Hannon, Lucy Hayes, Macy Hendelman, Adela Herbert, Betty Herman, Hannah Klein, Rose Eileen Litwin, Henry Loeb, Benny Lusky, Lester M. Maskell, Estelle Avery Merkin, Gershon Myron, Edward Oser, Mildred Perlman, Odessa Friedman Plost, Samuel Rosendahl, Mimi Ross, Theodore Safran, Lester Schneeweiss, William Schwartz, Evelyn Simon, John Stein, Duncan Thomas Ware, Betty Weltman, James Weltman, Sophia Williams, Victor S. Young. And we add to those the memories of those we may remember, even if not formally at this time of year. We rise together to offer support to those who are broken and those who remember, as we turn to page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chaye echon v'yomei echon, v'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitro v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitala shmei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Da'amiram v'almal v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace bring peace and wholeness to those who are in pain, those who remember, and may they find their way back to life in time. Together we say, Amen. Please be seated. Our closing song is Osei Shalom, the final words of our Kaddish prayer. May God, who creates harmony and wholeness on high, bring these to us, to all Israel, to all.
Osei Shalom, bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu. Ve'akol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu. Ve'akol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'akol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'akol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
As we turn to the blessing over wine and challah over bread, as we bless our day with our gifts of food and drink, we turn to page 123. Jeff will ask you to get the big Kiddush cup on this, your last Shabbat as president, and we call up those who have not yet had their bar mitzvah, but we also call up those who have not yet graduated high school, who might want to come up and help us in the Kiddush. We have some grape juice. I see former bar mitzvah. I see, there we go. I see former confirmation and former bar mitzvah and all kinds of wonderful things, 50 board members, and we join together on page 123.
Please join me.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei v'yagafen. Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'razon yinkilanu, zikaron la'aseh v'le'eshit, yihu yom tekilah la'mikra'e kodesh, zeher tzilat Mitzrayim, kivanu brachata, v'yotanu kidashta, min ho'olim, v'shabbat koshecha, be'ahava u'ratzon, im chatanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mikadesh ha-shabbat. Amen.
I am. blessing over bread. It's a nice challah, I can tell by looking at it. It's not a Cindy challah, but it's still a nice challah. Partially because two people can lift it up. So, if you don't know Cindy Simon's challah, you'll get it at some point. But we still a wonderful challah. We join together with some raisin challah, the blessing over bread.
Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.